Hey everybody, welcome to Nutricast, the BL Biolab supplement manufacturing podcast. Today, I'm here joined with Nick Stivali, who is an R&D engineer at BL Biolab and does a lot with formulations, sourcing, product development, and flavoring, which is a topic we're primarily going to be talking about today. So Nick, you kind of have an interesting backstory of how you got into this, because you don't have a traditional backstory of how you got into this. So give us like a little update. Well, not really update, but kind of explanation on like how you fell into R&D.
Yeah. So my background is in biomedical science. I didn't work in any dietary like supplement field or anything manufacturing. I had no experience. So I just learned basically from you and from the people that worked at BL Biolab. So I gained knowledge pretty quick within 2 years. Did a lot of flavoring, definitely, within the first year, and then like more complicated formulation followed after that. But yeah, on the flavoring side of things, I've seen it all as far as like the requests we get. Different types of requests we get are all over the place and pose different types of challenges.
So when it comes to flavoring certain types of formulas that our customers request, what are the things you take into consideration?
Well, the most common are going to be, pre-workouts, protein powders, electrolytes, sometimes plant mix it, green powders, reds powders. And from these, a lot of people will try to do something different than what's already on the market. And that's where the flavor challenge usually arises. So keeping that in mind, you have to inform the customer on what flavor makes the most sense for their product, even if marketing says, fruit punch might be the best, fruit punch might not be the best for, something that it doesn't fit with. So there's kind of a reason why like most green powders in the market might have a citrus flavor or they might have a chocolate flavor, because those are really the only kind of flavors that go well with that. Yeah. Whereas doing like a blue raspberry, it's like, well, you could try it. Yeah. But it's going to be really challenging just because those flavors don't mesh well together. And, a lot of people aim for efficacy of a particular, mineral, say magnesium or calcium. And then, as a customer, they don't know the solubility of these minerals. And that can pose an issue with, how the liquid looks. I mean, if it's not fully dissolved, it doesn't look great. And they don't know that. So we have to inform solubility of each ingredient. And also the impact it has on flavor, because minerals don't taste good in high quantities. And the same goes for botanicals. Many botanicals are incredibly bitter, incredibly hard to mask. So yeah, I mean, those are huge challenges.
Yeah. So what's interesting about things like electrolyte supplements is somebody's like, I want 300 milligrams of magnesium citrate. All right, well, you want 300 milligrams of magnesium from magnesium citrate, but it's only like a 15 or 16% material.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically you need to look at, okay, well, 300 divided by 15%, I'm going to need essentially 2 grams of magnesium citrate to yield 300 milligrams of magnesium. And then, I also want potassium. I also want sodium. I also want all these minerals in efficacious doses. And by the end of it, you have 10 grams of minerals that taste terrible. Yeah. They don't dissolve in water. There are certain types of minerals like magnesium chloride or potassium chloride, which we don't generally use a lot of. But they are water soluble, but to a certain extent. But then you still have to overcome the taste and the flavoring challenges, because yes, they might dissolve in water, but they might taste terrible. Yeah. Like magnesium is one of the worst tasting things I've ever had.
Yeah. That the potency of minerals is another thing that customers aren't going to know. I mean, maybe they will, but most don't. And that poses a huge challenge for us. Like you said, the magnesium or calcium chloride, for example, very high calcium content, mostly used for industrial purposes and might not yield the same absorption as, another type of calcium, like calcium citrate. They're going to differ greatly. So if a customer is hard stuck on a particular mineral with a low calcium content, low magnesium content, it's going to hurt their powder. So we have to guide them. Sometimes it doesn't it doesn't lead to, a project that works, but, ultimately we have to provide a quality product. And sometimes that means lowering the dosages, adjusting the formula.
Yeah. Then there's also the challenge of a lot of people look at the dietary supplement industry as like a completely turnkey Amazon model. And if you want to do something cool, new, and innovative, it's almost, I don't want to say impossible. It's incredibly difficult to follow that Amazon model,
right? Which
Amazon, it's a style of marketing. Clothing companies do it really well. What's that company? Shein, or Sheen, however you pronounce it. Where they do, I think it's called fast fashion. Where what they'll do is they'll jump on particular trends, and the way like Shein does it is they have all of these suppliers in China that can just turn things around instantly. So as soon as they find a trend, they can reach out to the suppliers in China or India or wherever they're sourcing their materials from, their textiles from, and they can literally start to sell something within days.
Yeah.
Amazon companies try to do that same thing. Well, they'll jump on trends. Now the trend's life cycle on Amazon is a little bit longer. So I would say a particular trend would be like 3 to 6 months. Whereas with clothing, it might be 3 to 6 weeks. But with Amazon, it's like 3 to 6 months. Well, if you're trying to jump on a trend for 3 to 6 months, our lead time on new products is 3 months.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's only so much you can do. And now you add a flavoring component to that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's almost nearly impossible.
Putting the pressure on for flavoring is difficult because all the components in flavoring, they're all, it's like a dance. They all impact each other.
Yeah.
The flavors themselves, they don't have any sort of, the only thing they do is try to emulate an actual flavor. It depends on the sweetener to bring out the potential of the flavor, the acids to bring out the potential of that flavor. Every time you start flavoring something, it's an experiment. It's a dynamic experiment because the base formula, I could take one protein powder and try to use the same exact flavor profile and put it on another one, and it's not going to work.
Yeah,
it's always different, always an experiment. So
particularly when they want certain, like they say, oh, we can't have more than 50 grams of sodium. Okay, well, if you're talking about protein powder, well, protein by itself has salt in it. It just naturally has sodium in it. So, okay, well, you don't want more than 50 grams of sodium in your formula. Well, your base formula already has 40 milligrams. What people don't realize about salt isn't there for like sodium. It's there generally used in formulation as a flavor enhancer. When I was in culinary school, I had a chef. He was like, if I could pick any 2 things to season with, the first thing would be salt. And the second thing would be pepper. But what he was trying to distill into all the culinary students was salt is the best flavoring agent you could possibly use, better than any herb, any spice, any acid, anything, because what it does is just enhances all the other flavors. So that's why, like, if you're cooking like a good steak, all you need is salt and pepper. And that's just because the flavor should be actually in the piece of meat you're cooking. But when it comes to like flavoring like powders, we use salt to enhance flavor, but now you're putting a sodium restriction on it. So you're trying to get this particular flavor profile. You want your electrolyte supplement to taste like blue Gatorade, but you don't let us use salt.
Yeah.
Well, one of the primary things that makes that blue Gatorade flavor is salt.
It's never going to taste like Gatorade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. The constraints we're often put under for flavoring are mostly frustrating, especially when it comes to sweeteners. I mean, I understand the sweetener side of things because there's artificial and there's natural, but depending again on the base formula, sometimes a stevia or a monk fruit won't do it. But again, I mean, that's the trend, to have something all natural. I get that. But oftentimes it's a sacrifice for the quality of the product. So yeah, there's little components, like you said, salt, in formulas that make a huge difference. In cooking, you said it's the most important, but in most formulations for us, it could be, the acids in there that are bringing out the flavor. Well, mostly fruit flavors, but there are like top flavors that people tend to gravitate towards, like strawberry and fruit punch and, like orange flavors and stuff like that, and mixed berry and those aren't always the same. They're always different. And when I say different, I do mean the actual flavors. Like a flavor company, flavor supplier will have hundreds of different types of mixed berry flavors, orange flavors. So, that's another thing too. We're taking into account the dynamics of that, and finding a mixed berry that might be strong enough to flavor a particular formula.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a flavor company we work with. They've been around for over 100 years. They have just vanilla alone. They have 2,000 different iterations of vanilla. That's insane. I mean, that's 2,000 different vanilla flavor profiles.
Yeah.
And that's just vanilla. Now, vanilla being probably one of the more complex flavors.
Right.
But when it comes to anything else, I mean, blue raspberry. Me alone, I've worked with dozens of blue raspberries, dozens of grapes, dozens of strawberries. I mean, just the complexity. I mean, in one of our customers that we're working with now, our bigger customer, that Ariella worked for like 6 months flavoring that stuff. In their strawberry flavor, they use 6 different strawberry flavors.
It's crazy. Yeah.
To achieve the flavor they were looking for.
Yeah, that's definitely something I don't think a lot of customers will know either. Because I mean, any average person is going to say, "Oh, just strawberry, just blueberry, just pineapple." But these flavor houses they're using different extraction methods. They're using different like derivatives to emulate those flavors. And I mean, there are a lot of different types of species of fruit, but flavors can go beyond that. They can make a fruit that has never existed, but essentially it may be natural, but it'll almost taste synthetic. And that's been a thing too, where I've made something that has natural flavors and people will be like, oh, it almost has like a synthetic taste to it. I'm like, well, I use natural. It's just that flavor. And that only actually happened with a liquid flavor, which is a whole nother thing. They can be extremely potent, but it can be the same thing with powdered flavors as well. We have a blood orange flavor that seems to be a go-to for a lot of products we've made. And that's a particularly strong flavor that will punch through just about anything. So that's an interesting side that I don't think a lot of customers know.
And something I found interesting, I found this out like a year or two ago, is the common banana flavor that you get, whether it's natural or artificial, but like if you eat something that's flavored with banana, it's actually the flavor profile of a banana that existed over 100 years ago. So that banana, that species doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know whose idea that was to emulate this banana flavor of a banana that existed over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But most banana flavors now do not emulate the banana that you can buy at a grocery store.
Yeah.
So it's just
like, let's make a banana flavor that no one's ever had before.
I always found that interesting. Like, wow, how did that happen? Like whose idea was that? Yeah. But it's just like flavoring is one of the most nuanced things. And then just doing the flavoring is difficult. But then you have customers who may be doing a powdered pre-workout. And then like this happened quite recently where a customer ordered 7 different samples from us. And 7 different base formulas, and each base formula had 4 different flavors. Yeah. So if you do the math on that, it's 28 different flavors that we had to send this customer.
Right.
They were frustrated because they were like, well, how long is the flavoring process going to take? And it's just like, well, for 28 flavors, it's probably going to take about a month. And they were, I don't know how or why, but they were under the assumption that it was going to take couple days. And it's just it's people don't understand the work involved, because even though it was 28 flavors that we were sending the customer, each iteration of each formula of each flavor may have taken us 3 or 4 attempts. So at that point you're talking close to 120 different iterations that we had to go through just to get something to send the customer, which is, and then that customer also kept changing the base formula. Well, the base formula has a big impact on the flavor of the final product. Like we may have developed a flavor system with like the acids, the sweeteners, the salts, the flavor that worked. But if they modified one of the active ingredients and they increased it or lowered it, well, you modified something that changed the flavor of the product.
Yeah, I mean, start over.
Yeah, it's a start over.
Yeah. And when we say experiment or, iterations, it could be like 10 iterations before we send something to the customer. And those iterations might mean changing a sweetener by 10 milligrams or by changing an acid by 100 milligrams or, something so small, but it really does change it. We're referring to the other R&D team member, Ariella, and she is incredibly thorough with her powdering, flavoring powders rather. We like to know from a customer that the base formula is concrete. It's not going to change. Otherwise, we do have to start over, and then we got to do more rounds and inform them, how this is going to change everything after we've already explained to them like what we've learned with the previous round. So, it can be frustrating. I mean, obviously, every customer has the right to change what their plan is. Of course, we like customers to be more prepared, especially when it comes to flavoring, because it is such a time-consuming task. But again, it all comes down to getting their product as quality as possible. So, they may not know that the change they're doing is completely is like messing up their entire formula. Yeah. And that can happen too. I mean, I'm working on a fish protein right now that's posed many challenges.
Is it fish or krill?
Krill protein, which is fairly new on the market. I'm not sure if there's many out there.
Krill is similar to shrimp.
So, fishy flavors. Another one that's kind of adjacent to that would be like a fish collagen. And a lot of fish collagens, I think they're usually flavored with chocolate or vanilla, probably just chocolate, because you can throw a bunch of cocoa powder in there and it has the fat content, which is something that I did too with the krill protein. I used cocoa powder for the fat content. I used MCT oil powder for the fat content. And, something like that poses huge challenges because fats obviously don't mix great in water. Oils don't mix great in water. So brings us to another topic of gums, which a lot of customers don't like gums. And they serve a huge purpose. And as far as thickness, suspension, emulsification goes, they can be critical to making a formula like whole, as opposed to just terrible. So again, it's a huge factor in the quality of a product. And I know you're the one who taught me how to flavor mostly. So you probably know a lot of situations where gums have been super effective and have failed in many ways without using them.
Yeah, well, gums are interesting because they sometimes act as an emulsifier. So if you have, because we're talking about powders, most of them are going to be dissolved in some type of liquid. I mean, you did work on that one project where it was a powder directly on the tongue. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But most of the time, just about all of the time, it's going to be a powder dissolved in a liquid. And if you have any fats in there, well, now you're going to have separation because oil weighs less than water. So any fat is going to be sitting on the surface, or it's going to be kind of clumped in some type of weird matrix floating around. So now you're not going to have a homogeneous mixture and it's going to look funny. So you might end up using a type of gum, whether it's xanthan gum, guar gum, acacia, carrageenan, and it's probably a few that I'm missing.
Yeah. Now, most of the ones you just listed, they don't sound like they're natural.
Yeah.
But they are.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get tripped up on that. But again, it's a perception of the product, what the ingredients are on the label.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily matter if it's natural. It's just how it sounds, really.
Yeah, how it's perceived.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when people put non-GMO on a product and it's like, well, yeah, this is a vitamin or mineral supplement.
Yeah.
Like none of these things come from any plant. So obviously it's non-GMO.
Yeah. Yeah. We got like a request for like a non-GMO collagen. It's like, well, the cow isn't going to be non-GMO, but the grass it's eating might be.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where it's kind of semantics at that point.
Yeah. So
perceived.
It's challenging to do these types of things and work with the customer, especially when the customer has like hyper specific claims they want to make, or there's hyper specific details they want to adhere to.
Right.
So when it comes to flavoring, what are like, for our listeners, what are 3 primary points that are important to get across when you want to release a flavored supplement?
Getting back to the beginning of our conversation, the base formula, that has to be evaluated by us first to make sure it makes sense to be flavored, because believe it or not, there are formulas that are unflavorable. They are too difficult to flavor. They will never taste good. So that is number 1. Number 2 would be the actual flavor itself has to make sense with the formula. Otherwise, the customer is hurting themselves, and it's hurting us too, because we're going to take forever to develop it, and it's not going to. In the end, it's not going to be a quality product. It has to, it has to pair up with the base formula, whether that is what's popular on the market or not. It just logically it needs to make sense. And then the last thing really would be, making sure that the requests as far as the flavoring ingredients go, whether that's, the sweetener or gums or whatever the components are for flavoring, it's a good compromise between what the formulator thinks and what the customer wants as far as their requirements go, because we don't want to step on the customer's toes, but we also want them to have a good product in the end. So it really comes down to the communication between the customer and us, and them guiding us on their requirements and us giving them our feedback on their product.
That's it for today's podcast. If you like this episode, remember to hit the like button, subscribe for future episodes, turn on notifications so you get alerted when we release new episodes.